Investigators still stymied in the hunt for the Brown University gunman, scouring front yards, seeking to speak with another person seen in proximity of the suspect. Thin threads, few hard leads. Renegade House Republicans defy their leadership and sign up with Democrats to extend soon-to-expire Obamacare tax credits. But will the House vote this year? President Trump addresses the nation tonight. Greatest hits from the year that was, or new promises for 2026? Inbox items, peace in Ukraine, war in Venezuela? Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to the Takeout. In Providence, Rhode Island, grief and disbelief following the mass shooting on the campus of Brown University persists, but it is now accompanied by anxiety as the hunt for the gunman stretches on. There's also recently been harsh talk of poor campus security, insufficient video surveillance, and bungled early FBI work on this case. The finger pointing and blame shifting, it seems, an outgrowth of an investigation making scarcely detectable progress. Frustrations appear to be mounting. We will bring you the latest from a just concluded briefing. President Trump addresses the nation tonight from the Oval Office. As you might expect, we will have a preview. And an earthquake today of sorts in the House of Representatives, one with potentially ominous signs for Republican governance next year. 4 House Republicans joined all the Democrats in signing a discharge petition designed to force a vote on a reform-free 3-year extension of Obamacare tax credits due to expire at year's end. House Republican leadership adamantly opposes this 3-year extension without reforms, calling it costly and reckless, among other things. But now it's heading to the House floor. When, however, not clear. But discharge petitions carry their own weight. They exist to force votes on matters House leaders want to bury. That's why they are a very big deal, and we will have more on the next stage of this legislation and the heavy price millions of Americans will pay in higher premiums if Congress fails to act. Nick Reiner made a brief appearance in court today in the first legal proceeding of first-degree murder charges against him in the slaying of his father, actor and director Rob Reiner, and his mother, Michelle. Cameras were in the courtroom, but no photography of Nick Reiner was allowed. We will have more from Los Angeles. We start with Katrina Kaufman in Providence, Rhode Island. Katrina, what did we learn this afternoon?
Major, first I just want to say that right now, starting at 5 at the Ivy League campuses, there are vigils beginning, and they're planning to do a moment of silence for the victims of this shooting at 5:15. But out of that presser, they talked about this new photo that they've released, Major. And this is not of the person of interest, but of someone that they believe was in that person's vicinity, close enough or in enough proximity that they believe it's a person that may have information. They want to talk to them. They've released an enhanced photo of that person. That is after we also saw more enhanced imagery yesterday and this long timeline video of the person of interest. In it, Major, you could see them sort of casing this area leading up to the shooting. There's also some footage after the shooting. What they said at this briefing, too, is they released a map, and they're asking for people who are in that area to check their home and their car cameras. They want to see if there is any other video footage. And they say it could just be the smallest moment, Major, when this person happened to pass by. So they are continuing to call on the public, to call on the residents of Providence, Rhode Island. Something we've been talking about is the fact that the building where this took place, it was right on the edge of Brown's campus. So that's why they also really need this residential footage, because this person didn't just have to pass through the main area here. They were able to get out into the neighborhood, Major. And one other thing they mentioned that I think is significant is they say they're being careful about the details they're releasing, because when they're interviewing witnesses, Major, they want to make sure that they're not getting these details from the media. They want them to be from their memory. There was a lot of chaos when this happened. People are going to really have to work to remember all of these details that happened then, and they want to make sure that they get factual representations from those witnesses, not just things that are being fed through these press conferences to the press that they may have then read.
Careful and painstaking work going on in Providence, Rhode Island. Katrina Kaufman, thank you so very much. It appears Dan Bongino's days at the FBI, well, they've come to an end. President Trump today confirming the deputy director, quote, wants to go back to hosting his talk show. CBS News Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins me now. This broke this afternoon. Was this expected, Scott?
There's been a drumbeat over the last few weeks. Multiple sources tell CBS News the departure is expected in a matter of days or weeks, which means the end of this month or the end of this year, could be the end of this week. Again, look at the bigger picture here. Dan Bongino is arguably one of the most famous career employees or political appointees in this administration in recent time because he has a mass audience of millions. He has an empire that he walked away from to take this job. If he departs, there's an expectation he goes back to that or tries to resuscitate that.
You mean the radio show, podcasting, and other things?
Yeah, he had a multi-platform media empire that truly did have millions of followers. He sacrificed that to take the job in the administration, I think some of his supporters would argue, and that he could try to reclaim that if he departs the administration in the coming days.
Any sense at all, Scott, this is connected to what recently happened, an arrest in the pipe bombing case related to the night before January 6, 2021, DNC headquarters, RNC headquarters, or the pending deadline at the end of this week for the Justice Department to comply with the law seeking release of the Epstein files?
Yeah, the timing is going to get noted by people that this is happening the same week. We expect an Epstein file release, but there's no reason to believe there's a connective tissue between those two. Pipe bomb case is a different matter. It was his big case, the one he stood at a press conference and helped announce, one that he said was a personal project of his or initiative of his to amplify. That case is in its infancy. They haven't even gone to a detention hearing. Leaving so early in this big case, that's going to get noticed.
Scott MacFarlane with all the details. Appreciate it very, very much. We turn now to the White House and our Nancy Cordes, who is looking ahead to the president's prime time address. Nancy.
Major, good to see you. A short time ago, the president told reporters on the tarmac at Joint Base Andrews that he is looking forward to talking tonight about the mess that he inherited, in his words, and the fact that this administration has done a great job. Essentially, White House officials say that he is going to lay out what he thinks he has accomplished over the past 11 months. So we'll probably hear a lot about the border. We'll hear about tariffs and other economic measures. And then he will lay out what he wants to do in the next 3 years or so. This is a format that the president doesn't usually avail himself of. He generally likes to speak in front of large crowds, but he can also feed off of those crowds and sometimes go off message. In a more scripted, formal address like this one that is going to be taking place from the diplomatic room and delivered live tonight, there is more of a likelihood that he will stay on message, they hope, and deliver specifically the message that he believes that the economy is getting better and will continue to get better in the years to come.
And to that point, Nancy, I'm sure you pick this up much more than I do, but even in my passing interactions with those close and working in the White House, there is a frustration that they believe that they've done a lot this year, but they see the decline in the poll numbers, particularly in evaluations of the president's dealing with the economy and inflation, even down on immigration, and they feel like they've got to do something to shake up perceptions that they don't believe fit with what they perceive as the accomplished reality.
Mm-hmm. Right, and part of the challenge is that the president has been insisting that inflation is getting better, that prices are going down, that people have more money in their pockets. And the reality is that that may end up being the case in the years to come, but it is not the case right now. Inflation is at 3%, which is the same as it was when he took office. Yes, gas prices are down a few cents, but nothing that is going to measurably change the reality for most Americans. Unemployment has ticked up, in fact. So it'll be interesting to see if he sticks with that message tonight that things have already started to improve, or if he makes the case that some of these tariffs that he has imposed are going to pay off in the future, and that Americans just need to sit tight and wait to see the results of the policies that he has implemented so far.
North Lawn of the White House, Nancy Cordes, thank you so very, very much. We invite you to tune in tonight. CBS News 24/7 will carry President Trump's full address to the nation at 9 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, we will have analysis and reporting after that. Now to Capitol Hill, where 4 House Republicans, as I mentioned at the top of the show, defied Speaker Mike Johnson by signing on to a democratically drafted discharge petition to force a vote on extending Obamacare tax credits for 3 years. Nicole Killian joins me now from Capitol Hill. Quite a day, Nicole. Catch us up.
Well, it was quite a day that started this morning with those 4 Republicans signing on to a Democratic discharge petition that was led by leader Hakeem Jeffries that in essence would extend these enhanced tax subsidies for the next 3 years, just a straight, clean extension. We saw a similar proposal over in the Senate fail, although 4 Republicans signed on to that measure as well. So over in the House now for backing this measure as well. And what we're looking to see is when this may come to the floor for a vote. Speaker Mike Johnson, of course, was asked about that earlier today. I also asked him about that conversation that he had on the House floor following all of this with Congressman Mike Lawler, who was one of those lawmakers that you talked to just yesterday, who kind of led moderates in signing on to this discharge petition. Take a listen to the Speaker's response.
Have you lost control of the House?
I have not lost control.
Because this is the third time.
There are look, we have the smallest majority in U.S. history, okay? These are not normal times. There are processes and procedures in the House that are less frequently used when there are larger majorities. And when you have the luxury of having 10 or 15 people who disagree on something, you don't have to deal with it.
Now, more specifically, the Speaker told me about that conversation he had on the floor with Congressman Lawler and a few other moderates, that it was, quote, intense fellowship. And he said, obviously, they're still trying to work through these complex issues. As for when that discharge petition may come up for a vote, the Speaker said to stay tuned.
And in that stay tuned category, Nicole, just remind the audience, House and Senate members are looking to leave Washington any day now, right?
Yeah, that's right. And obviously, too, in terms of process and procedure, not to bore folks at home, but with these discharge petitions, they usually have to sit for a couple of days, 7 legislative days to be specific, before they can be brought up for a vote on the floor, which means this likely won't come up until early January. But for instance, we saw with the Epstein files, that too was moved through a discharge petition, and the Speaker brought that up well before that time period. So that is kind of the question, because obviously we're up against this deadline where these subsidies expire at the end of the year. Leader Jeffries called on the Speaker to bring it up right away. Leader Schumer also echoing that if the House passes this, he believes that Leader Thune should also bring it up for a floor vote. But again, unclear if that's all going to transpire in the next, 24 hours before they all get set to leave town.
And we're all waiting to see if the president says anything at all about this in his primetime address later on tonight. Nicole Killian, thank you so very much. We're going to turn now to Los Angeles and the murders of director and actor Rob Reiner, his wife, Michelle. Their son, Nick Reiner, made his first court appearance since being arrested for the killings. He was dressed in a suicide prevention smock. You can see that in the artist rendering there. The 32-year-old did not enter a plea, and his arraignment was postponed until the new year. Adam Yamaguchi joins me now from Los Angeles. Adam, catch us up on what happened today.
Good afternoon, Major. Yeah, it was a very short briefing. We heard from Nick Reiner once when he agreed to waive his right to a speedy arraignment. Now, that arraignment is now scheduled for January 7th. Now, my colleague Jonathan Vigliotti was inside the courtroom and reports that Nick Reiner was seated in an area behind plexiglass in an area known as the box. And it was a little hard to make him out, but from what he could see, he saw that Nick Reiner sat calmly, stoically, and was wearing, as you pointed out, that suicide prevention smock. Now, we are expecting to hear, or we're waiting the charging documents to be filed, and when that is released, we'll have a better sense of the contours of this case.
There's a statement released today, Adam, from Jake and Rami Reiner. I want to read it to the audience. We now ask for respect and privacy, for speculation to be tempered with compassion and humanity, and for our parents to be remembered for the incredible lives they lived and the love they gave. That is reference indirectly, Adam, to the tremendous public interest, speculatory environment around this, a speculative environment around it, and lots of social media chatter, obviously some of which intruding on what this family is trying to come to grips with.
Absolutely. I don't think any of us can begin to understand or approximate the pain that the family is going through. And you're right, there is a lot of rampant speculation out there. We are trying our best to parse the fact from the fiction, but we are getting something of a glimpse of a timeline, starting with Saturday night, that party that was attended by Nick and Rob, in which party attendees reported a heated argument. We also know, according to the DA, that they believe that the murders were allegedly committed sometime in the early morning of Sunday. And we also know later on that afternoon, around 3:40, the bodies of the couple were found. The medical examiner just issued a report saying that the cause of death for both, let me get the correct verbiage here, is multiple sharp force injuries. And then, of course, later that night, Nick Reiner was seen on videotape at a convenience store, and then shortly after 9 p.m., he was arrested.
With all the details carefully explained, Adam Yamaguchi, as always, thank you very, very much. Still to come, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles' unfiltered interviews. Vanity Fair writer Chris Whipple joins me to discuss his reporting on the president's inner circle and some of the conversation it has generated. There's been a lot. Plus, can Parkland survivor and New York congressional hopeful Cameron Kasky follow the blueprint from Zohran Mamdani's mayoral win? Democratic Socialist joins me to discuss his bid to fill the seat of Jerry Nadler. And President Trump is setting his sights on a new renovation project. No, not on the White House grounds, D.C.'s public golf courses. His plan to take control of some of these courses and what it might mean in the nation's capital. The Takeout returns in 90 seconds. Welcome back. Susie Wiles is the first woman in American history to be chief of staff at the White House. And she did something she hardly ever does, talk at great length on the record to a reporter. Well, that reporter, Chris Whipple, Vanity Fair, I spoke with him about his story, what it tells us about President Trump's second term, and some of the conversation it has generated. Disingenuously framed hit piece. That's what Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff, said about your article. Chris, is it?
You know, Major, when the White House starts throwing words like disingenuous and context around, you know you've done something right. What they have not done is challenge a single assertion in the piece or a single quotation, and that's because they know that everything is rock solid. So instead we're getting what Ben Bradley used to call a non-denial denial, and this one's a doozy.
The White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt accused you of bias by omission, meaning you left out things that would have been more laudatory to the president and his first year in his second term.
I actually thought the piece was quite laudatory in places. You know, I made the case that Susie Wiles is the most powerful person in the Trump White House other than the president himself, that she runs a tight ship, you know, particularly compared to Trump 1.0, which was a killing field where White House chiefs went to die. You know, she's done a good job in many respects, and I think the piece reflects that.
You're a student of chiefs of staff and White House operations, Chris, possibly the most important student of that in American journalism. In the piece, Susie Wiles says she's not an enabler and not a bitch. Is she a facilitator who rarely, in that process of facilitating, rarely hesitates to challenge the president?
Yeah, you know, that was really a remarkable moment in the 11 interviews that I did with her over a period of almost a year. I quoted Leon Panetta, who was, of course, Bill Clinton's formidable White House chief of staff. I spoke to him, and he told me that he wasn't sure whether Susie Wiles was an enabler, as he put it. Boy, did I get a rise out of her. That was when she said, "I'm not an enabler, and I'm not a bitch." Her words, not mine. And I think that the reason for that is that she knows that the most important duty of the White House chief is to tell the president hard truths, and I suspect that she's sensitive about that because she hasn't always done that.
Right, and to facilitate the Trump agenda is to push it forward, not second guess it.
Yeah, you know, that was a definition of the role that J.D. Vance gave me, as you can read in the Vanity Fair piece. He said, look, you know, in the first term, people had this crazy idea that they were supposed to be looking after the national interest instead of facilitating the president's vision. But here's what Vance doesn't get about that, in my view, and that is that facilitating the president's vision, in executing his agenda, requires speaking hard truths and helping the president to avoid landmines that will come back to haunt him and damage his agenda and potentially hurt the country.
I just want you to give my audience a sense of how intentional this was. Chris, you mentioned 11 interviews, almost 11 hours, in excess of 11 hours. And those in the White House, in the inner circle, posed for very stylistic photographs taken by Vanity Fair. That's an allocation of time in the go-go, rush world of Trump, requires pronounced intentionality.
There was nothing rushed or unintentional about this. I'm not sure it was more than 11 hours, but it was certainly 11 in-depth interviews, let's put it that way, over a long period of time. And from the get-go, to Susie Wiles's credit, she spoke on the record. She was freewheeling and unguarded, remarkably candid. Major, you know as well as I do that never happens.
Nope.
With senior White House officials who ordinarily speak on deep background, as they call it, requiring, approval of quotations. There was none of that with Susie.
Particularly in the previous administration.
I wrote a book about it, a book about the Biden White House, and Ron Klain was almost always on background with me. So this was remarkable, and frankly, I think to Susie's credit. But from the beginning, could not have been clearer. Everything was on the record except when explicitly agreed otherwise, the result is this really remarkable insider portrait of Trump 2.0.
And everything's on tape, correct?
Everything's on tape.
There's a metaphor in there about letting the junkyard dogs run. So let's just extend that metaphor, Chris, you and I. Are there any dog houses in the West Wing? Any leashes?
Well, there used to be a woodshed.
Yes, I know.
About a dog house. and David Stockman famously was taken to the woodshed. Ronald Reagan's economic advisor, an architect of trickle-down economics, who gave a bunch of equally revealing interviews and kind of pulled the curtain back on, revealed that trickle-down economics was smoke and mirrors. Anyway, I digress. If there's a doghouse in the White House, I don't think that Susie's headed there, because I think that her bond with Trump is really remarkable. She is the only person he trusts. She has something, a kind of magic with this guy that none of her predecessors had. As you know, I mean, he blew through 4 different White House chiefs in his first term. So if there's a doghouse, I don't think Susie's in it, frankly.
You can catch the rest of my interview, more than 30 minutes, with Chris Whipple on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. I want to show you a social media post just came in from Dan Bongino confirming he's leaving the FBI in January. That is something just posted on X. We want to pick up on that because we were not sure when Scott McFarlane was on set. The date, now we know, sometime in January. I told you we would do an update on cookies for the holiday season. We have them here in the Conversation Corner, baked by Claire, who is Guy Pallas, my floor director's wife. Sugar cookies. I've sampled them. Amazing. When we come back, Parkland shooting survivor, Cameron Kasky, you see him right here. He's with me. He's already had a life. He wants to have a life in Congress in the not-too-distant future. We'll talk about that when we come back here on The Takeout. Welcome back. 9 Democrats, count them, 9 are running to succeed Jerry Nadler in New York's 12th congressional district, which, if you don't know, includes Midtown Manhattan and the Upper West Side, Upper East Side. It has a partisan voting index of plus 33 for Democrats and a per capita income of $75,000, which happens to be the highest of any congressional district in Congress. Cameron Kasky is one of those candidates, one of those Democrats running for that seat. He joins me now. Cameron became a gun safety activist, that's putting it mildly, after surviving the 2018 mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. It's great to have you with us, Cameron. Thanks for joining me. In the conversation about guns, you have now, I understand it, processed this in part, if not in all, about health care also, in addition to gun legislation, whatever it might be.
Absolutely. Gun violence in this country is not just an issue of guns. I mean, guns happen to appear at 100% of shootings in this country, but it is an issue of housing. It is an issue of income inequality. It is an issue of health care. Most gun deaths are by suicide. Most suicides could be prevented by people having access to mental health care resources. And until we address the material conditions of Americans and uplift those conditions, we're not going to see this violence go anywhere.
How old are you?
I'm 25.
Why do you want to be in Congress?
Because I saw a primary where I believe I could represent my values as a voter, and therefore I felt it to be my moral obligation to go and compete for those, because we are at a time where our children are going to be asking us, what did you do in this moment? In this moment in our democracy, which anybody will tell you feels like a very dramatic shift, what did you do? And more than anything in life, more than Congress, I want to be a parent, and therefore I want to be able to tell my children that I did everything I could.
How do you size up this primary? And being as young as you are, and you're Democratic Socialist, as I understand, that would be the line you would have. Is there anything about the Mamdani experience that informs or inspires you?
Well, Zohran's campaign inspired a whole wave of candidates who believed that taking certain positions that could be characterized as unpopular could actually be effective if they are based on your moral convictions. Zohran had a focus on affordability because he wanted to make this city more affordable for New Yorkers. Now, affordability has largely become a buzzword that politicians are throwing around, assigning whatever meaning to it they want. But Zohran meant what he said, and he said what he meant, and that really resonated with people. He got hammered for taking a human rights position on Palestine. People would not let him forget it. Meanwhile, not his job. This is something that the media was slamming him for. This is something his opponents were slamming him for. But he took his position not because it was the most convenient, but because it was what he truly meant. So I'm hoping the Mamdani effect we see, beyond a focus on how it's more expensive to be a person now, is candidates who are willing to take positions based on their moral convictions.
Is affordability a cutting issue in a congressional district where the per capita income is $75,000?
Well, I think with where the economy is going right now, affordability is a very broad conversation. For example, I think that Medicare for All is part of the affordability conversation. There are a lot of parents and grandparents in my district whose children are going to college and they're graduating with student debt into a job market that's been eviscerated by AI, and they are not getting entry-level positions that are putting them on the path to get decent benefits. So when they turn 26 and age out of their parents' health care plan, God forbid they have a terrible accident or fall ill, they could go broke seeking these resources. Therapy. I know therapy, I'm a school shooting survivor, is terribly expensive. And we have the resources in this country to be providing Americans with this help. We just need to be giving it to people. So I largely reject the notion that a lot of people have given me that people in my district are only thinking about their pocketbook when they go to the ballot box. New York 12 voters are very educated. They are very progressive. They care about all Americans, and they want to see candidates who are focused on uplifting Americans' lives.
Does anything about this process, Cameron, intimidate you? I mean, a new recent entrant into this race, Jack Schlossberg, very famous family. You can outline for my audience his relatives' family tree.
I mean, the whole thing is rather intimidating. I'm running against a lot of big money. My candidates all have, my opponents have all raised a pretty sizable amount. And while my campaign has a lot of individual donors and a lot of volunteers, we do not have a lot of big money coming in. And that's challenging. And I think that our political system is rigged in a very negative way, where the people who have access to more financial resources are always going to have an easier time winning races.
Is it personally hard for you to make those calls for raising money?
I mean, making calls to ask people for money is so soul-crushing. And fortunately, I believe in what I'm doing. So when I ask people to financially support my agenda, I really mean it. And if they connect with me on a policy level, that is something that is important to both of us. But It's like this system is designed to be as demoralizing as possible for people who do not have a high dollar Rolodex. And that's why there's great organizations like Run for Something, which is run by a woman named Amanda Littman, that offer resources to candidates who are struggling to break in but need to be competing in races.
You are demoralized but not deterred, correct?
I'm more motivated than I was when I launched, and I am also more tired than I have been in the past 8 years. Two things can be true at once, but I have a lot of people who believe in what I'm doing. I'm very inspired by the stories I hear about people, about what our policies can do to make their lives better. And at the end of the day, if I lose sleep doing that, there are people in this country who are losing sleep for much worse reasons. So I'll deal with it.
Cameron Caskey, I appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Nation's capital has lots and lots of country clubs. That's where the elite golf. It also has a few public courses where duffers like me play golf. President Trump wants to remake them, the public courses. Why? And why is he starting with dumping East Wing debris on some of those courses? We'll try to find out. That's next here on The Takeout. Welcome back. President Trump has built over his career many elite golf courses and clubs. He's very good at this. That's almost a bipartisan consensus. It now appears he's interested in overhauling public golf courses here in Washington, D.C., low-cost courses where beginners try to learn the game. In an exclusive report from the Wall Street Journal, Trump wants to play a big role in the future of these. There's 3 courses in particular, and one of them has a very special history here in the District of Columbia. White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal, Meredith McGraw, joins me now. So, Meredith, why does the president have this interest, and why is one of the courses now the site of dump truckfuls of debris from the demolished East Wing of the White House?
Well, as you said, President Trump has a long history of being interested in golf. He plays golf almost every weekend. He's friends with a lot of professional golfers, and
as well as golf course architects and designers.
Yes, as well as golf course architects and designers. And the Trump Organization has built and developed golf courses all over the world. This is really a passion of his. He will personally go out and check sprinklers on the golf courses and make sure that sand traps are up to par, if you will, when he's at some of his clubs. But he's taken a particular interest in DC's public courses. And this goes along with Trump's desire to beautify parts of DC. He's done things like, directed people to get rid of graffiti, or he wants to
remove people who are homeless.
Remove homeless people. He wants to revitalize the National Mall. He has a big vision for how he wants Washington to look, and renovating DC's public courses is part of that.
And Langston is one of those golf courses, and Langston has an important history in the District of Columbia.
It does. Langston Golf Course is historically Black golf course, and it's been very important to especially the Black golfers over.
Could not play anywhere else. That was the course that they could play.
Exactly. And these DC public courses have been beloved.
Low cost.
They're low cost. They're affordable, and they've been owned, or they're controlled by the National Park Service. But in 2020, a nonprofit named the National Links Trust won a lease with the National Park Service to take control of this. And part of their aim was to renovate and revitalize these courses, but also try to keep them low cost and affordable for the DC community.
And now Trump is trying to get a way into that space and possibly cancel that and retain them for the federal government, which would give him at least a lot of leeway to do whatever he wants, it sounds like.
It would. I had an interview with the president on Friday, and he was extremely animated when talking about these golf courses in the Oval Office. The Interior Department, which runs the National Park Service, told the National Links Trust that they are in default of their loan, and so it's really going to pave the way for the president to potentially put in his own designers, take control of any sort of effort to renovate these courses. And I think we're going to see more there. It sounds like the National Links Trust is trying to get support from the broader golf community, but this is something that Trump really cares about. It's something that Secretary Burgum at the Interior Department has gotten involved with as well. And I think he's very determined.
Very quickly, Meredith, would that require some taxpayer money to do this? I mean, if Trump wants to redesign these courses, that costs money.
It does. When I asked him about that, he said that all of the money for this would come from private donations.
Much like the renovation
of the ballroom and everything else that he's done in the White House so far.
$400 million now and growing. That is the new announced cost for the East Wing ballroom. Of which there is a new architect the president has brought in because the first architect was uncomfortable with the size and grandeur of the plans for the president. We'll see if the size and grandeur of his plans for these public golf courses in the District of Columbia follows that trajectory. Meredith McGraw, thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate the reporting.
Thanks.
Ben & Jerry's ice cream has always been more than just dessert. It has undertaken social causes proudly. That has created stresses within the corporate structure Ben & Jerry's finds itself in, and still does. Co-founder Ben Cohen explains the latest clash, values, corporatism, next, right here on The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Ice cream. Smooth and soothing. Corporate board clashes, not so much. 3 board members were removed from Ben & Jerry's this week. I spoke with Ben & Jerry's co-founder, Ben Cohen, on what's behind all the drama. Corporate governance and ice cream. For most consumers, it doesn't matter all that much, but Ben, it matters to you and Ben & Jerry's. Why?
Well, Ben & Jerry's has been trying to stay true to its values. It's very active in terms of taking stands on social issues. And now that it has been purchased by the Magnum Ice Cream Company, they've just made a very brazen attempt to illegally dismantle the independent board. They're undermining the values and the social mission of Ben & Jerry's and thereby essentially destroying the brand and just turning it into another piece of frozen mush.
And what have you done in response, Ben?
Well, the independent board has sued Unilever, Magnum, and we have launched the Free Ben & Jerry's campaign, freebenandjerrys.com, or follow us on the hashtag, to let consumers know what's going on and ask for their support to try to convince Magnum to sell Ben & Jerry's to this group of socially conscious investors that are ready to buy it and support the social mission.
If someone is so motivated, what do you want them to do, Ben?
Just go to the website, freebenandjerrys.com, follow us on the hashtag, freebenandjerrys, and you end up sending a letter to the chairman of Magnum, who's the person who has the power to change this situation, and to, kind of use social media to let Magnum know what you think of what they're trying to do to Ben & Jerry's.
So when it comes to Instagram posts or TikTok videos, you're saying bring them on?
Yeah, absolutely. The power of social media, it's big,
When you talk about the values of Ben & Jerry's specifically, what do you mean?
I think what's interesting, what's telling about the two companies is that the slogan of Ben & Jerry's is justice in all its flavors. The slogan of Magnum is life tastes better with ice cream. So in terms of justice, we're talking about racial justice. We're supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're supporting Black History Month. We support Black Lives Matter. All these things that are based on fairness and equality and justice, which I was always taught are basic American values.
Was a flashpoint early on, Ben, the West Bank?
Absolutely. That was the big change in the relationship between what was Unilever at the time and Ben & Jerry's. We made a joint decision to pull our ice cream out of the occupied territories because it went against the values of Ben & Jerry's. And Unilever ended up getting so much pushback from the government of Israel that they reversed the decision of the independent board. They did not have the legal power to do that. The independent board sued them. There was an out-of-court settlement. But since that time, well, now, you know, Unilever and Magnum have broken the terms of that out-of-court settlement. But since that time, relations between the board, which is responsible, legally responsible for the social mission of the company, and Magnum have been really bad. And they have censored the various stands that the company has tried to take in terms of, well, say the issue of Gaza. The company wanted to take a stand calling on Trump to have a ceasefire, but they wouldn't allow it. They threatened to fire employees at the company that wanted to send that thing out.
Right. Carrying on that line of conversation, Ben, when it comes to the values of Ben & Jerry's, where does your position on what many Jews in America fear and feel is a rise of anti-Semitism here and globally? What do you have to say about that?
You know, it's interesting. I am a Jew, and you know, I believe that Israel certainly has a right to exist, but I do not believe it has the right to slaughter people. And I believe actually that Israel's actions have probably been the worst thing in terms of fomenting anti-Semitism. You know, it's interesting. I personally, you know, have not really experienced any significant anti-Semitism. I mean, you know, we were brought up to believe that Jews were scapegoats, and we got blamed for everything that was wrong, in much the same way that immigrants now are being used as scapegoats and being blamed for whatever isn't going right. And, you know, so I don't know, my feeling about anti-Semitism is that it's horrible, and that, you know, as Martin Luther King said, we have to relate to people based on our characters, our internal characters, not based on the color of our skin or what religion we are or what ethnicity we are. I mean, geez, I mean, you know, there used to be this phrase that people used a lot, what would Jesus do? You know, he would be kind and considerate to people. Let's get back to that.
Ben Cohen, the Ben in Ben & Jerry's. Thank you very much for your time, sir. I appreciate it.
All right. Good talking with you, Major.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. This is The Takeout. Relentlessly curious, reliably civil, occasionally clever. Daily Report coming up next.